So, if you're a Poppy Playtime fan, there's a very high chance you've heard of Project Playtime, a co-op game like the original that looks really fun to play with friends, absolutely ruined by its third phase update. Since the Forsaken update being added to the game, there's been no update whatsoever and complete silence coming from the devs. This is why, as the indie horror fan I am, who's created some questionable games in my lifetime, I have decided to step in to save Project Playtime by coming up with some new ideas to add to the game. However, there's a big problem with me coming up with suggestions because I've never actually played it. So with that being said, a couple weeks ago I tried Project Playtime for the first time. Yes, it had its issues, but when paired with the right people, it was really good. The gameplay was nice, despite what a lot of people say about it. I'm going to be going from my least favourite ideas to my most favourite ideas in this video, so with that all being said, it's time to delve into what they should add to Project Playtime. So you may be wondering, Bendos, what do you mean by playtime rooms? What I'm talking about is the small rooms under the trapdoors where the toys take the players after downing them. However, these were removed in Phase 3. Previously though, there's only one type of these rooms, the Wacka Wuggy room. I think it would be cool to have different types of these rooms, maybe a musical memory room or a room inspired by Five Nights at Freddy's, where different toys come at you from 4 different hallways having to shut the doors as they get closer, only being allowed to shut one at a time, differentiating it from the Wacka Wuggy room a bit. This is a very small addition, but it would be fun to have a bit more to do down there each time you got violently assaulted and unwillingly thrown into a death trap. Anyway, moving on to the next idea. Alright, so, unlike the last idea, you all probably know what I'm getting at here. If you don't know, in Project Playtime there are different kinds of skins you can give to your monsters, and with the release of Chapter 3 about a year ago now, I think it would be nice to see the Nightmare version of Huggy Wuggy from the first dream sequence in Chapter 3 get added to the game.
And also the Huggy for the end of Chapter 4, but I forgot to talk about him here.
This was a relatively short entry, but I just wanted to include it either way to just add a little bit more video length. Moving on to idea 3. Pretty simple idea if you think about it, but what should they add in particular? The first idea I came up with was a possible expansion of some of the playcare locations, like a map based off of the cat and rat boss fight area, maybe the toy shop, or perhaps even an expansion of the counsellor's office or the playhouse. In terms of Chapter 4 though, maybe a couple more of the prison blocks joined together by some short cave sequences. Maybe with a cafeteria somewhere. Maybe they could also add a map kind of like that one gas mask part in Chapter 4. Where you have to look around Sawyer's lab as well as the experiments within it to look for the code to get out there. Pretty short section of this video, but I feel like adding new maps like these would make the game a lot more replayable. On to idea 4. Up next, we have a very useful menu the developers could add to the game, where you can join or create lobbies through a menu. When creating, there could also be unique settings you could give your lobby, which would also show near the name of the room on the selection screen. You could set the player count, make it only accessible to friends, or better yet, a whole other idea in itself, maybe different kinds of game modes or settings. The only good game mode idea I had while writing the script was maybe a hunt game mode, where instead of having the puzzle pillars around, the toy parts would be hidden away in small corners or vents. Another option there could be was maybe optional screen effects, like a VHS aesthetic, a black and white effect, or something else. All of these ideas can be set or changed in the lobby creator before they start the match. I think this would be an extremely good idea, however I appreciate that it would take quite a lot of effort. So devs, if you're watching this and thinking, I think the community would like this, my advice, even though I haven't made a proper game before, is to add these settings one by one instead of rushing to get it all out at the same time. With that out of the way though, time to talk about what gave me the idea to make this video. The new monsters they could add, which I'll explain one by one. There are 4 playable monsters that I think would work perfectly in this game, and as well as describing them, I'll also give ideas for possible abilities and skins. Without further ado, let's get into the first monster. Before I get into this one, I just wanted to explain why this is my least favourite of the 4 monsters. I know everyone would love to see more of this guy with such a good design he has, and sure, so do I. But I only put him down this low because I don't think he'd make much sense in the game with his lack of screen time. I also wanted to waste your time by asking you to subscribe. This video took ages and it's just one button. Trust me when I say it helps out a ton. Anyway, time to get into the actual stuff. Pianosaurus would be about the same height as Mummy Longlegs in game. When thinking of his abilities, I took heavy inspiration from Brute Boris's moveset from the end of Bendy and the Ink Machine Chapter 4. Legendary game, by the way. With that being said, his first ability I came up with was the Dino Dash. This is where, once activated, Pianosaurus' hitbox will get a slight bit bigger and he will run in whatever way he's facing at maximum speed until he hits a wall. If a player gets hit during this attack, they'll instantly be downed and can be taken to the feeding pits. Here's a small storyboard on how it could work in game. The next ability I came up with for Pianosaurus was where he jumps in the air and stomps down onto the floor. Depending on how close a player is to Pianosaurus, they would take a certain amount of damage. If you were far away, you'd take no damage. However, if you were extremely close, you'd instantly get downed. Here's another storyboard on how that could work. With that out of the way, here are some ideas I have for Pianosaurus' skins. The first idea, my school friend Tia came up with, and it was a DJ Pianosaurus skin being heavily based off of DJ Music Man from FNAF Security Breach. Here's what that could look like. I added rainbow piano keys, made his little spikes glow, and added a nice pair of headphones so we can listen to absolute bangers. What do you guys think he's listening to? Tell me down in the comments below. I personally think he's listening to Sleep Well by CG5, or maybe Hell Like This, also by CG5. Or maybe he's listening to some Coldplay songs. Or stuff from the YouTube sound effects library. What kind of playlist is this guy listening to? What kind of playlist is this guy listening? Where can you find that playlist? That was a subtle plug. God. Now we have the next skin I was able to come up with. The Dilophosaurus? Is that what's called? Yeah. The Dilophosaurus. If you're wondering why I chose this one in particular, I honestly do not know. But anyway, here's what it could look like. The next skin is one my friend Dino helped me with, being based on the blue Velociraptor from Jurassic World. I don't know a whole lot about the Jurassic World series, but all I can say is the skin looks really cool. Moving on to idea 6. Dory the Doman was a toy introduced in the currently latest installment of the series, Chapter 4. I wouldn't call him the main antagonist, but he certainly was a threat to me on my first playthrough of Dino. Anyway, in terms of Dory's abilities, I based him off of his moves from his boss fight. The first move is when he can extend his arms out a lot further than a regular hit, and damage players from a far distance. I'd say this take about a quarter of the player's health, just so it isn't overpowered. Here's a small storyboard on what this ability could look like. The next ability was between the dough spikes or the weird hands, and I chose to go with the hands. Basically, Doughy can stand somewhere, place the dough trap, and then walk off. It's very hard to see for the players, but if they look very closely, players will see a dough drop at the location Doughy placed his trap. And if they walk under it, the hand will come out, take another quarter of the player's health, and alert the player's location to Doughy for about 10 seconds. Here's what that ability could look like. Now it's time for Doughy's skins. The first skin I came up with was, for some reason, an ice cream skin. Don't know why, but I was probably just hungry. Regardless, here's what that could look like. I added some cool little details, like some occasional ice cream cones on the fingers and teeth, and the 3 most recognisable flavours, correct me if I'm wrong, vanilla, strawberry and chocolate. I like this design a lot, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think of it. The next Doughy skin was one my friend Dino came up with himself, this being a Doughy with both Huggy, Mommy and Catnap from the previous chapters, all combined into one. Here's what that looks like. This was a really cool concept on his behalf, and to make it cooler, I added something from each character, apart from Mummy Longlegs because I couldn't think of one for her, just to make the skin that little bit better, such as Catnap's moon pendant mixed in with the dough, and Huggy's bow around an arm. Anyway, for the final skin I could think of, I thought of Doughy's frozen form, which we see during his death scene. Not much to it, but there it is. I'll leave that there for a second in case you want to look at it. It's pretty bland though. Now, that's all for Doughy, so moving on to the second to last idea on the list, Yarnaby. Yarnaby was one of the main antagonists present in Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, being a lion-like creature who died shortly after his chase segment in a really confusing way, somehow turned into an extremely cool way. That looked like something straight out of a movie, the new death scene. Moving on from that, first we must go over his abilities. The first ability I came up with for Yarnaby was a roar ability. First off, doing harm to every player nearby, instantly marking the ones close by and downing the ones even closer by. Here's a quick demonstration of what that could look like. Now we have Yarnaby's next ability, which is one my friend here does things for, this being yarn traps. His idea was that a player would walk over the yarn and get stuck for a couple seconds, as well as the player being marked down for the monster. Here's a storyboard of what that could look like. With his abilities over with, it's time to talk about his skin ideas. The first one I came up with was a sheep Yarnaby, which looks like this. As you can see, it's a black sheep, similar to Baba Chops, one of the nightmare critters. Not much to talk about there. The next skin I came up with was a much cooler one in my eyes, which was a burnt Yarnaby skin inspired by his death sequence in Chapter 4. I added some burn marks and some slight little sparks around him, as well as his eye being slightly melted. I think this one's pretty cool, but not nearly cooler than this next skin, which is my favourite one of this entire video. Enter Garden Yarnaby, covered in leaves and vines with some occasional flowers, made out of cold hard stone, straight from the mines, easy to crack a skull open with one bite. This is my favourite skin out of every one that I've made, so tell me what you guys think. Besides that though, that's all that I came up with for Yarnaby, so on to the next and final suggestion of the entire video. For the final part of this video, we are talking about my favourite antagonist in the game, and my second favourite character in the entire series, Catnap. Catnap's abilities are pretty cool, so you're going to want to hear me out on these. For the first ability, we have Catnap's Red Smoke, which when activated will make a large red smoke cloud, which when stood inside of as a player, will slowly take away the player's damage. However, if the gas is in a close range of a puzzle pillar, it cannot be activated. Only one of these clouds would be allowed to exist at a time. For the next Catnap ability, which Dino came up with yet again, is a summoning ability, where a roaming mini critter will spawn near Catnap, and once it sees a player, it will alert Catnap and chase the player down, stopping either when the player gets in a locker, or when the player is out of range. If the critter catches up to the player, it will jump at them, take away a little bit of their damage, and scuttle into a little hole in the map and despawn. If these abilities do get added, I will be extremely happy, and finally stop playing as Boxy every time instead of trying Huggy or Mummy. Next up, we have Catnap skins. The first skins are a set of skins, being skins of each... Oh my god, I said skins quite a lot. The first skins are a set of skins, being skins of each critter, that would look good on 4 legs, obviously. Such as Hoppy, Bobby, Bubba, and just because he's iconic, not because he'd stand on 4 legs, Dog Day. Pretty basic skins, but here they all are. Next up on the list, we have Catnap. Wait, sorry, hold on. Bilbert, I told you to bring in the red smoke for this bit. Alright, there we go, thanks. While the smoke's activating though, I wanted to quickly tell you guys that if this video gets 400 likes, I will put this mini version of Doughy the Dough Man inside of my fridge for an entire week. And if it gets 500 likes, I'll keep him in there for another week, and so on until 800, where I'll keep Doughy in my fridge for an entire month. I'll be uploading a short about what happens to Doughy if we do end up reaching the goal, so subscribe. There's already a short up about it that I uploaded a couple days ago. Alright, we good now, Bilbert? Okay, nice. Right. Here we have Skeleton Catnap, otherwise known as his Nightmare variant from the Chapter 3 end boss fight. Pretty much the exact same as in-game, but just with a couple of changes to fit the template. Wait, so what exactly do we do now? Oh, done. Oh, that explosion hit hard. God, it even hurt Catnap, which is what this next skin is. Injured Catnap, with bandages, scars, and cuts. And finally, because apparently they mean bad luck, a black cat with green eyes. Who's the witch leading this black cat? I don't know, probably like the prototype or something. Well, that was eventful, wasn't it? Being serious though, I think all of these ideas have great potential to shape the game up to its former glory in the coming updates. Some of the stuff I would really enjoy if it were added to the game, so tell me down below if you feel the same way. With all of that said though, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I haven't tried using this kind of format before, so tell me if you guys liked it. Thanks for watching, I'll see you guys in the next video.